The hidden cost of avoidance, most people don't realize it, but anxiety isn't just a feeling, it's a silent architect quietly building walls around your life. In the US, where the pressure to have it all together is everywhere, avoidance has become almost a national pastime. Think about it. How many times have you dodged a tough conversation at work, skipped a network event, or let a phone call go to voicemail just to avoid that uncomfortable rush of nerves? It's not just you. According to the American Psychological Association, nearly 1 in 5 adults struggles with an anxiety disorder, and the numbers keep climbing every year. But here's the part nobody talks about. Every time you avoid discomfort, you're reinforcing the very prison you want to escape. It's like the story of Sarah, a young marketing manager in Chicago. She was smart, ambitious, and had big dreams, but every time her boss asked her to present in front of the team, she'd find a way out, claiming she was too busy, volunteering to take notes instead, or just hoping someone else would step up. At first, it felt like relief. But over time, Sarah noticed her world getting smaller. She stopped raising her hand for new projects. She avoided after-work events. Even simple things, like speaking up in meetings, started to feel impossible. This is the hidden cost of avoidance. It doesn't just keep you safe, it keeps you stuck. And in a country built on boldness and risk-taking, that's a price too high to pay. But what if there was a way to break out? What if the answer wasn't in avoiding fear, but in facing it head-on, the way American pioneers, inventors, and leaders have done for centuries? The real story starts when you stop running. The ancient code fall 7, rise 8. If you look back at American history, you'll see a pattern that's almost hidden in plain sight. The people who shaped this country weren't the ones who never failed. They were the ones who refused to stay down. It's the same spirit that built the first colonies, crossed the Rockies, and put a man on the moon. But there's an ancient code, born in Japan centuries ago, that captures this idea perfectly. Fall 7 times, rise 8. In Japanese, it's called Nanakorobi Yaoki, and while it might sound foreign, the heart of this principle is woven into the American story. Think about Thomas Edison, the inventor whose name is practically synonymous with American ingenuity. He didn't just stumble upon the light bulb in a moment of genius. He failed publicly, repeatedly, and sometimes spectacularly. When asked about his thousands of failed experiments, Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's Nanakorobi Yaoki in action. Even if he never heard the phrase, it's the relentless willingness to fall, get up, and try again no matter how many times it takes. But here's the twist. Most of us have been taught to avoid failure at all costs. We're told to play it safe, to wait until we're ready, to only step forward when we're sure we won't fall. Modern self-help books are filled with promises of confidence and certainty, but the truth is, real growth happens in the mess, when you're stumbling, sweating, and unsure. The ancient code isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. And this isn't just a lesson from the past. Today, psychologists and neuroscientists are rediscovering what pioneers and samurai already knew. Resilience is built through repeated exposure to discomfort, not by avoiding it. Every time you fall and get back up, you're not just proving something to the world, you're rewiring your own mind for strength. In a country that celebrates comebacks and second chances, maybe it's time to embrace the fall, not fear it. Because the real secret isn't in never falling. It's in always rising one more time than you fall. The science of falling while your brain needs it. It's easy to think that resilience is just a matter of willpower, but science tells a different story. In the last decade, American researchers have uncovered something remarkable. Your brain is actually designed to adapt and grow stronger through failure. At Stanford University, neuroscientists have shown that the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear, can be retrained, not by avoiding what scares you, but by facing it again and again. This isn't just theory. In the 1950s, psychologist Joseph Wolpe, working in the United States, pioneered a method called exposure therapy. He discovered that when people with severe anxiety were gently exposed to their fears in a controlled way, their brains slowly learned that the threat wasn't as dangerous as it seemed. Over time, the fear response weakened. Today, exposure therapy is one of the most effective treatments for anxiety, used in clinics from New York to Los Angeles. But the science goes even deeper. Recent studies at Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania have found that every time you confront a fear and survive, your brain creates new neural pathways, essentially mental evidence that you can handle discomfort. It's like lifting weights at the gym. The more you practice, the stronger you get. Avoidance, on the other hand, does the opposite. Each time you dodge a difficult situation, your brain's fear circuit get reinforced, making the anxiety even harder to escape next time. This is why the American spirit of perseverance. Think of the civil rights activists who face down hatred, or the entrepreneurs who risk everything on a new idea, has always been about more than just grit. It's about training the mind, not just the muscles. The real breakthrough comes when you realize that falling isn't a setback. It's a workout for your nervous system. Every stumble, every awkward moment, every failed attempt is actually building your brain's capacity to handle stress. So, the next time you feel anxiety rising, remember, your brain isn't broken. It's just waiting for you to show it what you're capable of. And in a country that's always been about pushing boundaries, maybe the most American thing you can do is to fall, get up, and let your brain grow stronger with every step. The unwavering mind Fudoshin. There's a reason the phrase "keep your cool" is so deeply woven into American culture. From the pressure cooker boardrooms of Wall Street to the high-stakes moments on the basketball court, the ability to stay steady when everything is on the line is almost a national ideal. But what if true steadiness isn't about being fearless? What if it's about acting, even when your heart is pounding and your hands are shaking? That's the heart of an ancient Japanese concept called Fudoshin, an unwavering mind. It's not about eliminating fear, but about refusing to let fear dictate your action. And while the word itself might be foreign, the idea is as American as it gets. Think about the Apollo 13 astronauts. When disaster struck in space, they didn't freeze or panic. They acknowledged the fear, but they kept moving, solving one problem at a time. Their calm under pressure wasn't the absence of anxiety, it was the decision to act in spite of it. This kind of mental resilience shows up again and again in American history. During the civil rights movement, leaders like Rosa Parks and John Lewis faced threats and violence, but they kept showing up day after day. They didn't wait for the fear to disappear. They moved forward with it, letting their purpose be louder than their panic. Fudoshin isn't about being a superhero. It's about being human and choosing action over avoidance, even when your mind is screaming at you to run. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies from the National Institute of Mental Health show that people who practice acceptance-based coping, acknowledging their anxiety but not letting it control their choices, are more likely to succeed in high-pressure situations. It's not about silencing your nerves. It's about learning to carry them with you, like a soldier marching into the unknown. In today's world where social media highlights only the polished moments, it's easy to believe that everyone else is calm and confident all the time. But the truth is, the most successful people are often the ones who feel the fear and do it anyway. They've learned that courage isn't the absence of anxiety. It's the refusal to let anxiety make the decision. So, the next time you're facing a moment that makes your stomach twist, remember the lesson of Fudoshin. You don't need to be unbreakable. You just need to be unwavering, because in the end, it's not about never feeling fear. It's about never letting fear stop you from moving forward. Beginner's mind Shoshin. In America, we're taught to celebrate the experts, the people who make it look easy, who seem to have been born with talent or confidence. But there's a hidden danger in this obsession with mastery. It makes us terrified of being seen as beginners. The truth is, every American icon, from inventors to athletes to artists, started out awkward, uncertain, and often downright bad at what they would one day become famous for. This is where the ancient Japanese concept of Shoshin, or beginner's mind, comes in. Shoshin is the willingness to approach every new challenge with openness, curiosity, and zero expectation of perfection. It's about giving yourself permission to be a rookie, to stumble, to ask questions, and to learn out loud. And if you look at American history, you'll see that this mindset is at the root of every breakthrough. Take the story of Katherine Johnson, the brilliant mathematician whose calculations helped launch the first American astronauts into space. When she started at NASA, she was one of the few black women in a sea of white, male engineers. She didn't pretend to know everything. Instead, she asked questions, made mistakes, and learned relentlessly. Her willingness to be a beginner, to admit what she didn't know, is what made her indispensable to the space program. Or think about the explosion of American innovation in Silicon Valley. The most successful tech founders, people like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, weren't afraid to launch products that were unfinished, buggy, or even embarrassing by today's standards. They understood that progress comes from iteration, not perfection. In fact, the entire culture of American startups is built on the idea of failing fast, embracing mistakes as the fastest route to mastery. But in the age of social media, it's easy to forget this. We scroll through endless highlight reels, comparing our first steps to someone else's finish line. We judge ourselves harshly for not being instantly great, and we hide our struggles thinking we're the only ones who feel lost. The reality? Every expert was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once stumbled over their words. Every leader once doubted themselves. Shoshin is the antidote to the pressure of perfection. It's the courage to show up, to try, and to learn, even when you feel exposed. It's what allowed American pioneers to cross unknown frontiers, what fueled the jazz musicians of New Orleans to invent new sounds, and what drives every person who dares to start something new today. So, the next time you catch yourself hesitating because you're not good enough, remember, the beginner's mind isn't a weakness, it's your greatest strength. In a country built on reinvention, the willingness to be a beginner is the first step toward greatness. The spirit that perseveres. Gambaru, if there's one quality that defines the American story, it's perseverance. The willingness to keep going, even when the odds are stacked against you, is woven into the fabric of the nation. From the earliest settlers who braved harsh winters and unknown lands, to the civil rights activists who marched through threats and violence, America's greatest achievements have always come from those who refuse to give up. This relentless drive is captured in the Japanese concept of Gambaru, a spirit of persistence that pushes forward, not just when things are easy, but especially when they're hard. Gambaru isn't about waiting for motivation or inspiration to strike. It's about making a decision to keep moving, even when every part of you wants to quit. Think about the story of Wilma Rudolph, born in Tennessee in 1940. As a child, she contracted polio and was told she might never walk again. But Wilma's mother taught her the value of perseverance. Day after day, Wilma practiced walking, then running, falling, and getting up over and over. By the time she was in high school, she was outrunning everyone. In 1960, she became the first American woman to win 3 gold medals in a single Olympic game. Her journey wasn't fueled by constant confidence, it was powered by the decision to keep going, no matter how many setbacks she faced. This spirit shows up in every corner of American life. Entrepreneurs who launch business after business, failing and learning until something finally works. Students who are the first in their families to go to college, pushing through doubt and financial hardship. Veterans who return from service and rebuild their lives step by step. Gambaru is the quiet force behind every comeback story, every underdog victory, every moment when someone chooses to try again instead of giving up. Modern research backs this up. Psychologists at the University of Pennsylvania have found that grit, the combination of passion and perseverance, is a better predictor of success than talent or intelligence. It's not about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. In a culture that often celebrates overnight success, the real heroes are the ones who keep showing up day after day, long after the spotlight has faded. So when you're tempted to quit, remember the spirit of Gambaru. It's not about being fearless or perfect. It's about making a promise to yourself to keep moving forward even when progress feels invisible. In the end, it's this spirit, the decision to persevere, that turns ordinary people into legends and setbacks into stepping stones. In America, as in life, the ones who keep going are the ones who change the world. The daily ritual Unshakable mind training in the United States. The idea of daily practice is nothing new. From the disciplined routines of Olympic athletes to the morning rituals of successful entrepreneurs, Americans have long believed in the power of small, consistent actions to create big change. But when it comes to building an unshakable mind, most people overlook the importance of facing discomfort on purpose every single day. Imagine if, instead of waiting for confidence to magically appear, you scheduled a moment of discomfort into your daily routine. This is the heart of Unshakable mind training, a practice that echoes the habits of some of America's most resilient figures. Take Eleanor Roosevelt, for example. She famously said, "Do one thing every day that scares you." As First Lady, she pushed herself to give speeches, travel alone, and confront issues that made her deeply uncomfortable. Over time, these daily acts of courage transformed her from a shy, anxious woman into one of the most influential leaders of her era. Modern psychology now supports what Roosevelt and others instinctively knew. Researchers at Stanford and the University of North Carolina have found that regular, intentional exposure to small fears rewires the brain, making anxiety less powerful and resilience more automatic. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic leaps. It's about sending that email you've been dreading, speaking up in a meeting, or striking up a conversation with a stranger at the coffee shop. Each act is a tiny fall, a controlled risk that teaches your nervous system, "I can handle this." This approach is now being used in therapy and coaching across the country. Cognitive behavioral therapists encourage clients to create exposure ladders, where each rung is a slightly more challenging task. Over weeks and months, these small steps add up, turning what once felt impossible into something routine. It's the same principle that helped American jazz musicians master their craft through daily improvisation, that fueled the civil rights movement's sit-ins and marches. Courage built one uncomfortable moment at a time. So what would happen if you made discomfort a daily habit? What if, instead of avoiding what scares you, you faced it head-on, just for a few minutes each day. In a nation that's always valued action over hesitation, this simple ritual could be the key to unlocking a mind that's truly unshakable. Because in the end, resilience isn't built in a single moment of bravery, it's forged in the quiet, daily decision to keep showing up no matter how you feel. The cascade effect, how facing one fear changes everything in America. The idea that one small action can spark a chain reaction is woven into the nation's DNA. It's the story of the first shot fired at Lexington and Concord, igniting the Revolutionary War. It's Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat, setting off a movement that would change civil rights forever. What most people don't realize is that this same cascade effect happens inside each of us every time we face a fear, no matter how small. When you challenge yourself to step into discomfort, even in the tiniest way, you're not just tackling a single anxiety. You're sending a message to your brain, I can handle this. And that message doesn't stay contained. It ripples outward, touching every part of your life. Psychologists at Yale have found that when people confront one fear, their overall sense of self-efficacy, the belief that they can handle challenges, rises across the board. Suddenly, the person who spoke up in a meeting finds it easier to ask for a raise. The student who gave a shaky presentation feels brave enough to join a new club. The parent who made a difficult phone call discovers the confidence to set boundaries at home. This domino effect is visible in countless American stories. Consider the women of the suffrage movement. Their first public protests were met with ridicule and hostility, but each act of courage made the next one easier. Over time, their willingness to face fear didn't just win the right to vote. It transformed the way women saw themselves and their place in society. Or look at the tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, many of whom started with a single, nerve-wracking pitch to investors. That first leap, no matter how awkward, often led to a cascade of opportunities, partnerships, and breakthroughs. The cascade effect isn't just about external achievements, it's about internal transformation. Neuroscientists at the University of California have shown that each time you face a fear and survive, your brain's wiring changes. The circuits that once screamed danger start to quiet down, and new pathways of resilience and confidence begin to form. What starts as a single act of bravery becomes a habit, and then a way of life. So the next time you hesitate to take that first step, remember, you're not just changing one moment. You're setting off a chain reaction that can reshape your entire future. In a country built on the power of bold beginnings, facing one fear might be the most revolutionary act of all. The real secret: resilience over perfection. If there's one lesson that echoes through every chapter of American history, it's this: perfection is a myth, but resilience is real. From the earliest days of the nation, Americans have been told to chase the dream of flawless success. But the truth is, the people who shape history are rarely the ones who get everything right the first time. They're the ones who refuse to let setbacks define them. Consider the story of Abraham Lincoln. Before he became one of the most revered presidents in U.S. history, Lincoln faced a string of failures that would have crushed most people. He lost multiple elections, failed in business, and suffered personal tragedies. Yet, each time he fell, he got back up, sometimes battered, always changed, but never broken. Lincoln's legacy isn't built on perfection. It's built on the kind of resilience that turns defeat into wisdom and pain into progress. This pattern repeats itself across the American landscape. The Wright brothers crashed their flying machines again and again, before finally achieving powered flight. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television, only to become one of the most influential media figures in the world. These stories aren't about people who never felt fear or doubt. They're about people who learned to see anxiety as a signal, not a stop sign, a sign that they were on the edge of something important. Modern research backs up what these trailblazers lived. Psychologists at the University of Chicago have found that people who focus on resilience, on getting up after each fall, are not only more successful but also happier and more fulfilled. They understand that anxiety never fully disappears. Instead, it becomes a companion on the journey, a reminder that you are pushing your limits and growing stronger with every challenge. In a culture obsessed with highlight reels and overnight success, it's easy to forget that the real secret isn't in never falling. It's in always rising, one more time than you fall. Resilience is the muscle that carries you through uncertainty, disappointment, and fear. It's what built the railroads, won the World Series, and sent astronauts to the moon. So, the next time you feel anxiety creeping in, remember, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be persistent. In America, resilience has always mattered more than perfection. And that's the real secret to turning fear into strength and setbacks into stepping stones.